Hello. In this video, we are going to talk about muscles of the forearm, specifically brachialis and brachioradialis. And these begin on page 132 in your book. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Sharing the screen, we're sharing the screen. All right. So here we are, brachialis and brachioradialis. Brachialis is considered a muscle of the forearm because it affects the forearm, because it is on the distal humerus and inserts on the ulna. Ultimately, though, the position of brachialis is actually in the brachium here. Okay, so it's in the upper arm, really. Brachialis is called biceps best friend because it is deep to biceps, and when brachialis contracts, it helps push biceps up, it helps bulk it up, it lifts it up, right? So when you make a muscle, right? Contract biceps, brachialis contracts along with it and bloop, pushes biceps up, making that lovely rounded appearance and making you look very strong and buff and whatever. So brachialis is biceps best friend because it makes it look good. All right, so brachialis actually originates on most of the distal brachium here. So distal half of the anterior surface of the humerus. Distal half, all of that right there. It inserts on the tuberosity and coronoid process of the ulna. So remember the tuberosity right here? And there's the coronoid process. Okay. And, it shows this little splotch right here as the insertion. Tuberosity and coronoid process of the ulnas, the insertion. So this is a strong elbow flexor. That's all it does. Whereas biceps can flex the elbow, flex the shoulder, and supinate the forearm, only flexion of the elbow is brachialis's action. So that's pretty easy. Nothing but flexion, okay? Brachialis sits a little more distal than biceps on the humerus. So you can actually palpate brachialis down towards the distal end of the humerus. Okay, so if you're flexing, okay, there's this rounded one here is biceps. You can see that in the little corner here. That's biceps, and then deep to that right there. You can see it move when I do that, right in through here. That's brachialis. Okay, so it's biceps best friend, makes him look good, pushes him up, lifts him up, flexes the elbow. Okay, that's it. That's it for brachialis. All right, so we're going to go on to the next page, which is brachioradialis. Brachioradialis is named for its location. Obviously, we have the brachium, which would be the humerus, and then radialis, which is where it's going to insert. So brachioradialis is on the lateral side of the forearm here, which again, an anatomical position. Remember, you're standing like this. So this is the lateral side. Yeah, okay. Brachioradialis is on the lateral side of the forearm here. And actually, it makes a very nice dividing line right here between the extensors of the forearm, which are the ones that I'm making dance right now. These right here are the extensors, and the flexors of the forearm. So brachioradialis is right here, and it makes that lovely dividing line between the flexors and the extensors. Interestingly, brachioradialis is the only forearm muscle that runs the entire length of the forearm, but does not cross the wrist. Okay, runs the length of the forearm, but does not cross the wrist. So let's check this one out. Here it is. So brachioradialis originates here. And I'll give you the origins and insertions in a second, and goes all the way down the length of the forearm, but doesn't cross the wrist. Okay. So it's going to affect the elbow, right? Yeah, because it's not going to do anything with the wrist because it doesn't cross the wrist. Remember, muscles can only affect the joint that they cross. In this case, the elbow. All right, so the origin of brachioradialis is the proximal 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. So you have a fraction there. Visual learners, write out the actual fraction. Proximal 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge, just right here. And on this, it's right here. Now it runs the length of the forearm. It actually has a pretty bulky belly. Okay, that's this right here, the bulky belly. And then it inserts on the styloid process of the radius because it's on the thumb side. Remember, the radius is on the thumb side. Right there, thumb side. Okay, now as far as actions are concerned, because it crosses the elbow, it has to affect the elbow. So what is it going to do? It's going to flex the elbow. Okay, even though it's over here, it's kind of lateral, it still can flex the elbow. All right, so it is an elbow flexor. It's not the strongest one we have, obviously. Biceps and brachialis are going to be stronger elbow flexors, but brachioradialis is in that category as well. So it is an elbow flexor, but really, one of the things that it does very well is it assists to pronate and supinate the forearm when those movements are resisted, which they kind of are all the time, unless you're sitting here going pronation, supination, pronation, supination. Most of the time when you pronate or supinate, you're pronating or supinating against resistance. So I'll give you an example. When you go to turn a door handle, that door handle gives you a bit of resistance, right? I mean, sometimes they're really super easy and you can just turn without any resistance. But for the most part, they do give you a bit of resistance. So that's when brachioradialis would assist to supinate, okay? Or if maybe you're using a screwdriver and you're driving a screw into a piece of wood, that's going to offer some resistance. So brachioradialis will help to pronate and supinate in that instance, okay? The easiest way to find brachioradialis, or the easiest way to get it to contract, is actually to put your fist up underneath your desk. Okay. Let's see if I can show you this right here. Put your fist up underneath your desk. So obviously my computer's on a desk. You see that? Watch right here. And then push up into the desk. Push up into the desk because I'm flexing my elbow, right? Against resistance. There it is. There's brachioradialis. You can do that at home. Obviously, that's really easy to do. Okay. And of course, if you're palpating and you have your forearm here, it's going to be this one right here. Right? This big one right here, bulky brachioradialis. All right, so I've popped over into visible body here, doing supination of the forearm. It's only giving me biceps though, and a little muscle called supinator. That's too bad. Okay, anyway, brachialis and brachioradialis, page 132 and 133. The next video is going to be about the extensors of the forearm. So extensors of the wrist and fingers, mostly, they are going to be on this side of the forearm. And they're going to extend the wrist and fingers. So that's coming up next. Stay tuned.